Yeah, that was weird. It was under the more. Anyway, we found it. So that's good. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and others may chime in as well over the course of the next hour, or maybe we won't even take that long. But so this is this was an incredible experience for me. Oops, I'm going to mute you now just in case there's but if you have to ask a question, just unmute yourselves and ask a question. But I just muted you quickly because I was getting feedback. I could hear my own voice. So, but anyway, so I just came back, as you know, from Africa, Tanzania specifically. And the reason for going was a little bit of fun and vacation time, but mostly research and experience with the Hadza tribe that, as you both know, is where the inspiration for WildFit, which for those watching the replay that may not be WildFit clients of mine, WildFit is a nutritional program that I coach, and the philosophies of WildFit are deeply rooted in this nature, this tribe that we call the Hadza tribe. And there's Deborah. Hi, Deborah.
How's everybody?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Nice to see you.
Good to have you back.
Yes, it's good to be back. So I was just introducing the call, explaining a little bit that the Hadza tribe is where the inspiration came from for our founder, our WildFit founder, Eric Edmeades, to create this nutritional program that is, as you guys all know, is so amazing. And it was all inspired by this tribe. He had been visiting this tribe for over 15 years. Most of you already know that, this type of lifestyle has been in his vocabulary, right? Like he's grown up going and visiting the Hadza. And so this was just a natural progression that he would evolve with the WildFit and all of us coaches, and that we would all be going to visit. So, and it was kind of cool because I can honestly say that all of Eric's stories about the Hadza are 100% true. So if you're ever curious if he was, fluffing the story, no, he wasn't. They are all true. So I witnessed that firsthand. So, but it was really an incredible experience. And I really just wanted to share with people because I think that there's a lot that we can learn. And I know that all of you know about WildFit, but someone watching this video may not. And this isn't a sales pitch. This is not what it is. So don't skim through and think that that's what it's about. But it's really just appreciating, like, I think we could all learn from the simplicity of the way that they live and their focus and what's important to them. And for us in our modern world, I think that we are really off track. Like we are so off track that we don't even know what we should be doing anymore, right? And that includes how we live, how we eat, how we think. And it's just so important. So there's so many life lessons that you can learn from people like this, the Hadza group. They are the closest representation of how our oldest ancestors lived. It's not exact because they have had some visitors from the modern world. So that does influence them a little bit. Debbie asked that question before we started the call. Has having visitors come stay with them changed the way that they're living? And I want to say that in a small way, I think that it does, because we're not the only ones that go and visit. So now that Eric was probably one of the first ones that started visiting, he grew up in Africa and, with his father's career, he was around stuff like this a lot. So he was visiting them a long time ago. And then it started becoming a little bit more, I don't want to say popular, but it was, more people were coming to visit, missionaries would come and visit. And so a lot of these people think that by giving the Hadza, because, we look at them and we think they need so much, right? Because we have so much. So we think they need so much. And so we give them things, but they don't know what to do with the stuff that we give them. And if we make things easy for them, then they lose the skills that have been able to keep them alive. So we have to kind of be careful how much influence we have on them. We should observe, but maybe not interfere, right? So it's kind of like, I literally thought this when I was there, because have you all seen the movie Back to the Future? Right? Remember the movie Back to the Future? Do you remember when Doc told what's his name? Oh, I can't think of his name in the movie. Oh gosh, it's you know who I'm talking about. It's I'm really drawing a blank here. But anyway,
Marty.
character. Marty, yes, thank you. When Doc told Marty, you can't let your future self see you, or your past self see you, because you will change history, right? I was literally thinking of that, and I'm like, it's kind of like the same thing. So if we expose things to them, like, I'll give you an example. So when we were there was the option for some of us to actually go on a hunt with them. So these are hunter-gatherers. They don't have grocery stores. They don't have refrigeration. If they want to eat, they have to actually go and hunt something, right? So some of us had the opportunity to go on a hunt. This could be like 5 miles. This could be 10 miles. This could be 20 miles. You never know. It's whatever it takes to get something. So with my knee condition, I did not go on that hunt. It was killing me. I really wanted to, but I did not. And I'm glad that I didn't, because it ended up being quite long. They ended up going 25K, which is over half of a marathon. So it was well over like 13 or 14 miles, whatever 25K is. And it's not like you're just going straight on a path. You're going up hills, down hills. These are rocky hills. These are hills with loose gravel where you could slip. These are crawling through thorn bushes and getting stuck with thorns that are about this big in the bottoms of your shoes. And they do this barefoot, or at least now they have flip-flops, because again, people have come and given them things, donations. So there's that element. But where was I going with that? So when they go out on their hunts, one of the ladies had an empty water bottle. One of our ladies had an empty water bottle, because it's just the men that go hunt. And so she gave it to them because they were looking for water. They were very, very thirsty. It was very hot and they couldn't find water. The creek bed was all dry. And she had they were so resourceful. Like they went to the dry creek bed and they took their arrows and sticks and they started poking at the sand in the dry creek bed. And when they got down deeper, they could feel that the sand was moist. So they knew that there was water underneath. So they kept digging and digging and digging. And finally, water started to bubble up. So they did it more and more until there was enough water to bubble up. They would brush away some of the dirt and they would scoop up this water and they would drink so they could stay hydrated. And one of the girls had given them an empty water bottle that she had in her backpack. And they didn't know what to do with it. Like they honestly didn't know what to do with it. They cut it in half and they used it to almost like a spoon or a cup to drink the water with. And then they threw it away. And she's like, no, don't throw that away. Like that could really help you. And, she said they were trying to put the top back on, but they had cut it. So they couldn't carry water. So she said, see, even when we give them things to help them, they just don't know how to use it. And so if they had tried, I'm sure they're smart people. If they had tried, they probably would have figured it out eventually. But then if they start, using trash to collect water, then what happens to the skills that they have, so it kind of goes by the wayside. So we almost have to be careful of how much exposure we give them. But that was a really good question. So thank you for asking that, Debbie. So one of the things I wanted to share too is that same woman that shared the water bottle with them, she went on this hunt as a person who doesn't eat meat. And she had gone on 2 hunts prior. So she knew that when on the very first hunt she ever went on, they were very she was very, hey, Valerie, she was reluctant to, how do I want to say this? because I can't really speak for her, but she shared this information with me. So she basically said she was feeling sorry for the goat. Like she was having a lot of emotions around the goat, you know, because this isn't something normal for us. So this was very raw and real. And so she felt a little uneasy, a little awkward, you know, really just feeling all of her emotions about that poor goat, right? And then the second day, when she went on a hunt, the second day, she started to understand a little bit more clearly. She started to understand that it was more about survival. And so she was a little bit more on board. You know, it was still a little bloody to watch. So it was still a little sensitive, but she was a little more understanding. And then by the third day, she said, you know what? She goes, now I get it. I get it. They do this. She understood that they do this to feed themselves and their family. This is pure survival. You know, she even felt sad on that third day that they didn't get a big animal during their hunt. And she shared with us that she realized that they don't overhunt. They just hunt enough for survival. They just hunt enough to live and survive and feed their family. And that's it. So her mindset has shifted, and now she's actually considering eating meat. So that wasn't the goal, you know, but she sees the point in it now, and she understands, and she's being more practical and not getting involved with all the emotions about the animal. And one thing else that they do that she also commented on is that when they do hunt and they get a kill, they don't waste anything. So that animal is not suffering. You know, they don't waste anything. They eat nose to tail. They give the food to their hunting dogs. They have wild hunting dogs that help them. They give certain parts of the animal to the hunting dogs, you know, to reward them for their hard work. And they eat, you know, the organ meats right away because they're the most bioavailable food and the most nutritious. And then they take the rest of the stuff that they don't eat, they take back to camp where the women are and the children. So they really use all parts of the animal. One of the lessons that I was thinking that we in the modern world could think about from that experience is, do we eat only what we need, you know, or do we eat more? Right? Like thinking about eating, like, are we gorging ourselves? And I don't mean we as in just us 5 people here, but like as a society, are we overfeeding ourselves, you know, or are we like them where we eat just enough for survival? I think we know the answer, right? So it's a really, really eye-opening experience to realize that, wow, we eat for so many more reasons. We eat more than we probably need. There was another experience that one of the other girls had, and Eric had asked them what was the biggest challenge that they experienced on the hunt. And one of the other girls said one of her biggest challenges was keeping up with the tribe. So when they went on the hunt, I think there was about 5 Hadza men, and there were 3 of the wildfit coaches that went along on the hunt, and 2 women and one man that went on the hunt. So one of the other ladies, she said, you know, my biggest challenge was keeping up with the tribe, because you have to think about this. If you get separated from your tribe, there's wild animals. There's no extra water. Once you run out, you're out, unless you know how to find it, like the Hadza do. There's no light. So when it gets dark, it's dark. And I actually slept outside with them under the stars, and it's dark unless they've got a fire going. So it's like, and we don't know the terrain, right? We could very easily get lost. We could get hurt. We could be attacked by an animal. We're kind of defenseless out there. So her challenge was staying, you know, with the tribe, because they're running and running and running to get animals. If they see one, they're running and running to get it. So if you don't have the physical capacity to keep up with them, the fear is that you'll get left behind. So that was really tough for her, but she she stuck with it and she said, you know what? I don't want to die out here. I don't want to be a statistic of a visitor that dies out there. She had the desire to live. And so she pushed through and she ran as hard as she could till she caught up with the rest of the group, and she, like I said, she was running in, through bushes. And she told me when she got back, she goes, it's a good thing you didn't go because we had to, Mason, sorry, my dog was barking. She said that they had to run through like thorn bushes and go up and down these hills. And then sometimes if the animal ran the other way, they'd have to run back and go back to that same hill they just came up. So they went up and over this hill probably about 4 times, she said, and it was exhausting. And she'd have to crouch way down, and her backpack and her hat would get stuck on the thorns, and she got a thorn in her cheek. And luckily she had hiking boots on where they didn't get into her feet. But these Hadza do this with barely any clothes on and barely any shoes. Like they have flip-flops. A lot of them are wearing flip-flops now because they've had, donations given to them for clothing. But before, back in the day, it used to be barefoot and like hides. They would wear hides as clothing and they would be barefoot. So, her challenge of keeping up with the tribe was purely driven by the desire for survival. And she thought, wow. And they do this every single day. Every single day they're faced with, am I going to live or die? So, and they just do it over and over again without even thinking. So that was, after hearing that was another lesson for me. And I thought, am I working as a team? Like, am I feeling like I'm being left behind, or do I feel like I have, a team that can support me in life when life gets hard? Are we working as a team, right? And not giving up when it gets just a little bit hard. The key to survival is really just pushing forward, even when we're faced with challenges. And I often think that sometimes in our modern world, we sometimes give up too easy, right? Like, I know all of you here, know about WildFit, but, or think of any challenge that you might have had. Did you give up when it got a little bit challenging, or did you push through? Or even if you did push through, were there times in your life that you thought, oh my God, I don't know, should I just quit? Or, you were on the fence about it. I can remember, when I had trained for my first marathon, there were moments where I didn't think I could do it. And this is just something I'm doing for fun. These people do this for survival, right? And it just goes to show that the strength and the desire that we have can overcome any challenge if we really want it bad enough. So that was something really interesting to think about, is how quickly am I likely to give up on something when there's a little struggle, right? One of the things that they noticed, and that I noticed, so while the 3 of them were hunting with the men, I, with the other girls and guys in our group, we went and hung out with the ladies of the tribe. So we were gatherers. So we went out for a few hours and we were doing our own hunt, but it wasn't for animals. We were hunting for root vegetables. And that was so interesting. We found, I don't know if you saw my picture, but we found potatoes. And, there were all kinds of, there was a really cool tree that if you prick it with their arrow, like they have arrows and some of us have like jackknives, right? But if you prick it, there's this liquid that comes out and they use it on their skin. So I would rub it on my skin and it's like an anti-itch, and it smelled beautiful. It was like, and it turned white like a lotion. So it was just really, really interesting to find all these things that they use. But one of the things that they found was that they're very resourceful. So like the story about the water, how they found the water out of a dry creek bed. Now, how many of us would see a dry creek bed and just walk away thinking, oh, no water, right? I mean, I would. But they knew to go poking holes in it to see where there was some water underneath. So they're very, very resourceful. Of course, they have to be, right? Because this is their survival. They know how to use everything in their environment and they know how to use it wisely. So that's another thing that we can think of as ourselves. Are we resourceful? Or are we just waiting for everything to be spoon-fed to us? You know, like for those of you who are my WildFit clients, for those of you on this call or watching the recording, you know that I don't really give you a ton of recipes. I give you some, but I don't give you a ton because I want to teach you how to be resourceful, how to find this and how to make substitutions yourselves. So it's a good question to ask ourselves, like, are we as resourceful in our modern world as we could be, or are we relying too much on something? Electricity. That's the perfect example, right? Like when the power goes out, we're like, oh my God, what do we do? I have no internet, I have no power. And we feel like our whole world has stopped, right? These guys live with no power all the time. And so it's interesting to think about how resourceful we really are. Another thing that they focused on too is that the people that went on the hunt, they noticed that the hunters were so focused on getting the meat. They would pass by bushes that had berries on them. These people hadn't eaten in a day. So you would think that they would eat the berries, right, off of the bushes. But no, they didn't. They were like waiting for the meat. How do they know to do that? The meat is more nutrient dense. Meat can give us everything we need. All of our nutrients we can get from meat, right? How do they know that? They don't have the education that we do. This is just going by their instincts, but they knew to go and focus on the meat. And what was interesting is after they got a hunt, like they've got a kill, which wasn't a big one, by the way. They had, I think they got a bird. They got one time they got a bird there. So there was two groups. There was a group that went out the week before I did, and then I was in the second group. So one of the ladies that went out on the hunt was in both groups. She stayed there for 2 weeks. So that's why she has more hunts that she wanted to go on. But the hunt that she went on with our group, they got only a small bird. Now, can you imagine if you got a small bird and you had to bring it back to your camp and feed your family? And when I say your family, this is the whole tribe. So this is like all 10 or 12 of the men, all of the wives and the children. A small bird. It's like, wow. So they're going to go out the next day and they're going to go for another hunt. But they knew that they needed to go for the meat, that's where the most nutrition is. That's where they must go by the way that they feel in their body, right? That would make sense because they're not educated to go for the meat. No one told them that. They've just been doing it for generations and generations. So what was interesting though is when they got the bird, then on the way back, they ate the berries because they had already had some of the bird, some of the organs, and then they had the berries. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they didn't have some going out on the hunt as like a little bit of insurance policy? Well, I might not get a hunt, so maybe I should eat these berries on my way just in case we don't get anything. Why do you think they waited? Do you have any clue?
Yes, I do. They know where those berries are and they can come back to them if they don't get meat. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is so true. So what their focus is on the meat because that's the most nutritious. And when they come back, they know where the berries are. They can reward themselves in a proper way. They can reward themselves. They've got the main nutrition first, and then they can have the berries as a secondary source of food. Does that make sense?
Yes. Can I ask a question?
You absolutely can.
When they had found the fruit on the way back, did they bring any of the fruit back to the camp? Would be my question. No.
No, not that I'm aware of. They may, I don't know exactly, but I don't think so because the ones that went on the hunt did not make mention of that.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is interesting, right? So I'm going to assume no, because I think they would have told me, but if I find out otherwise, I'll make that correction. But as far as I know, they did not bring berries back. But like you said, they know where those berry bushes are. They know where they are and they remember what they look like. Remember the leaf patterns? We talked about leaf patterns, and our brain knows patterns. That's why when you have a business, you have logos, because when you see the logo, you immediately know what it is. So this is their leaf pattern. So they know that that bush produces berries. Even when it's not producing berries, they know that it will at some point again. So, so I thought that was very interesting. And I thought, how can I turn this into a lesson for me? And I thought to myself, do I always go for the most nutritious food on my plate first? I can tell you I am now, because I've learned that along the way through my education about nutrition. I do try to eat the meat first and then eat the secondary foods after the fact. So that way, if I get full, I know that I've eaten the most nutritious food first. And then if I'm full, I don't have to have all of the secondary food on my plate. That probably makes sense to you, right? Because all of you are familiar with WildFit. One of the other things that they shared with us is that when they found honey on this trip. And it was very interesting because they found a hole where the honey badger was getting in there, and there was a honey in there. So one of the tribe members reached his hand and came out. Now, prior to this, they share all the food with each other and with their tribe as much as possible, right? So that they eat what they eat when they're on the hunt, but then they bring some of the meat left over for the ladies. But they share everything. But when it came to the honey, they did not share. So the 2 or the 3 people that went on the hunt shared this story with us, and they said it was incredible to see, because as wildfitters, we all know what sugar can do to us. And they witnessed firsthand and how it does the exact same thing to them. Proof that there is a sugar addiction. They don't know about sugar addiction. They have no clue what that means. But when they found honey, the one Hadza man reached in there, he got honey. He immediately came out. Honey was dripping all over his hand. He was like gobbling it up, and he ran away. He ran like 10 or 12 feet away from the crowd so that no one would try to lick his fingers or get some off of his hands. He was going crazy, they said. And the funny part about this story is that Eric went and looked in the hole that they found the honey. Eric put his phone in the hole to show them that there was more, because you could see through with the video of the camera, and it was this really deep hole that they did not even know was in there. So the one guy saw that, and he practically dove in there, and the others were trying to pull him out because he wanted that honey so badly. So we thought that was an incredible story, because, here in today's modern world, we get so hard on ourselves when we can't keep our hands out of the snack jar, or we try to not have certain foods, and the craving is just too strong, and we beat ourselves up about it, right? But we really have to understand that is our DNA. There's actually something happening within our body that's making us go bonkers for this sugar. So I thought that was really just remarkable that they experience it too. And they don't even know what's happening. They just know that they have this incredible urge to eat and not share that sugar. Can you guys relate? Have you had a special treat that you've saved and you've said to your spouse or significant other, don't eat that in the refrigerator, that's mine, I'm saving it? How many people have done that, right? That's what they did too. They wanted to eat it all by themselves. They did not want to share. So I
Lori, when you're describing they went crazy, I mean, I have absolutely felt that feeling before. Why can't I stop eating this, this pie at Thanksgiving or something? And you feel, and when you were describing him and him licking his fingers, I felt like an animal, you were witnessing an animal, because animals will drag their, the dominant animal, whether it be in the tiger family or a monkey, they will grab their things and hide, and it's totally it's like we have that potential to be like that.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. So now you can all, when that happens to you, you can just take a deep breath and say, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing
I'm
wrong
not crazy.
It's totally normal. But understanding that is going to help us not beat ourselves up, because we all know that when we beat ourselves up over stuff like that, not being able to control our cravings, that just contributes to more stress and anxiety that we have, which actually hurts us in the long run when we're trying to, lose weight or, make healthier habits. That actually hurts us in the long run. So now we can have a little bit of compassion for ourselves, because even the Hadza do it too, which was incredible to witness. I wish I witnessed that, but I didn't. I had to hear the story. Another thing that one of the ladies was talking about is how her perception in today's modern world was so, and I briefly touched on this when I first started the call, is that we're so out of alignment with nature. We've gotten so far removed from nature, and maybe not us here, because a lot of us have some sort of a affiliation with WildFit. So we've been able to focus on that a little bit more. But the average person, we are far removed from nature. And she noticed that these people go out day after day after day. They never complain. They're happy as heck. They're such a happy group of people. And they just do it over and over again, because they're doing what is in alignment with nature. That this is just something that comes natural to them. Think anything of it. Let's see, what was the other thing? And I also wanted to share that one of the ladies that did the hunt, she did it fasted. When we first arrived there, we arrived on Sunday night. Was it Sunday night? Saturday night. And when we arrived on Saturday night, she had started not fasting, but she had started eating lots of green vegetables, and she limited her seasonal fruits. Like, we were at this really nice lodge when we first got there. It was a beautiful nature lodge. And the places we stayed at, let me just say, got better and better and better. It was incredible. But the very first lodge that we were at had this gorgeous fruit platter. And she said, no, I want to be really like in fat burning. I want to be able to have the most abundant energy. I want to have the most clean burning energy, because she knew she was going to go on the hunt in a couple of days. So she did not have all the fruit. And then the morning that they got up, I think it was Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday that they went on the hunt. The morning that they got up, none of them ate breakfast. None of them ate breakfast. They just got up, and their last meal was probably around 6 p.m. because we were outside, sleeping outside with the Hadza. So we had to eat before the sun went down because it was so dark. So it was an early dinner for us modern people, right? And she didn't eat anything else. And so she was completely fasted. Prior to that, even before she left her home, she's living in Germany. She said she started eating all the green leafy vegetables before she even left home. So she had probably had about 2 weeks of good, strong ketone energy, right? So she went on that hunt, and she said she felt incredible. She was able to keep up. The things that got her the most were like the thorn bushes and the going back and the forth and the crouching down underneath the bushes and stuff. That was a little bit challenging, but she said her energy was pretty consistent the whole way through, which was really, really cool to hear. So for anybody that is concerned about, like for those of you who've done the 90-day challenge, you remember when we went through those periods, those weeks where the energy kind of felt like it was a little low, there's hope that when you get over that hump and your body acclimates, you then get that energy that lasts and lasts and lasts. So she said that was an incredible experience for her. And the funny thing about it is that she has a friend back at home that is training for a half marathon. And she is not a runner. This girl says, I don't run. She goes, I exercise, but I don't run. She says, I don't go on hikes. She actually bought hiking boots just for this trip. And her friend has been going out and going on long mileage, long runs for the past 2 months, preparing for this half marathon. And she went out and did a half marathon with no training, no experience. So that was kind of cool. The power that we have within our own body is pretty incredible. Let's see, what were some of the other notes that I had? Oh, and one of the other ladies also, because they all went fasted, but one of the other ladies said, don't be afraid to go a period of time without food. Like, we have it so ingrained in our modern world that we need 3 square meals a day, right? I mean, I know that the 5 of us know that that's not true, but people watching the recording, they may have those 3 square meals a day and snacks in between, thinking that that's what we have to do, but we don't. So, don't be afraid to go a period of time without food. We all have plenty of body fat on us for survival. And I want to make a mention of this too. The way that the Hadza looked, now you have to think that this group of people, this tribe, they could go a day without eating. They could go 3 days without eating. They could go a week without eating. It varies. It varies depending on the season and the availability of nature, and the production of root vegetables or the animals. There's different seasons where the animals are more scarce. So you never know. And they did not look unhealthy. They looked very, very lean, like very minimal body fat, and they looked strong. They had energy. They looked happy. They were dancing. They were playing music. They made this little instrument. So at night they would dance around the fire. I mean, life is good for them. Life is good, and there was one woman that looked a little bit heavier than the others. And I say just a little bit heavier, like she just had a little extra insulation. And she was one that had went with the missionaries for a while. And Eric had mentioned this. So for those of you that are in the WildFit world, you've probably remembered Eric telling this story. And I got to see her, and she definitely looks less lean, not fat by no means, not overweight, but she definitely didn't look as lean as some of the others. But that could be why, because she was eating foods that she normally doesn't eat, but it was interesting. But everyone else looked very, very lean and very, very healthy. So I thought that was good to see. It was very, very, how do I want to say it? It was very reassuring to see that. So do you guys have any other questions so far? Deborah does.
Yes, I was just wondering about, you said the women stay back and they go foraging for root vegetables and fruits and things like that. How do they, okay, I don't know if we've all had children, but we're in hospitals, we have nurses, we have doctors. They do not.
That's correct.
They birth their kids right out there, and
yep.
God help if something goes wrong, I guess.
So this is a great question. We had, some of you may know Dr. Nalima. She is a gynecologist. She was in my group, and she asked some of those questions. And she made this comment too that made me realize, wow, she's really right. Having periods is like a modern problem. They don't have periods very much. Getting pregnant is not a challenge. Birthing a child is not a challenge. And so when they do that, obviously they're not having a cycle when they're pregnant. And then when they're breastfeeding, they breastfeed till about 2 or 3 years old, till they're about 2 or 3. And usually they're pregnant again by then. So these people are going anywhere, like they'll have probably maybe in their lifetime, like maybe 20 periods. And our society, over our lifetime, we have like in the hundreds, the quantity of periods that we have. And that's a new problem. like we never used to have that many periods. So I think that that's what we really need to look at as well. And I'm not as versed in this hormonal topic as Dr. Nalima, but that could be why we have so many hormonal problems as women, because we're not living in alignment with nature. Like I'm not saying we should all be pregnant and breastfeeding our whole lives, but it does stand to reason that, you know, they don't have those problems. They hardly have those problems. A mother or baby dying at childbirth is very, very rare. Very, very rare, they said. Very interesting. When we were with the women, there were some other interesting questions that we asked them. Like they were shocked to hear, because they asked us questions too. They were shocked to hear that we have a choice on whether or not we want to have sex with someone, because they don't have a choice. They have their partner or maybe multiple partners. They don't have a choice. So that was kind of hard to hear, you know, but they're okay with that. They're okay with that because that's all they know.
That's incredible, Lori.
Isn't it incredible?
It really is, because it's all function. Their life is function to thrive. That's really what it boils down to.
That's all it is. That's really
I
all.
was curious, you know, like you said, there were only 11 people in the tribe, but, you know, Eric's been going there for over 10 years, I think. So these children are growing up. Like, do they leave the tribe? Do they want to be westernized, or what's your thoughts on that?
Most of them, from what we could tell and from the questions that we asked of them, most of them don't want to leave. We had some interpreters that would help us because their language is so hard to understand. And would ask the interpreters questions, and they really don't want to leave. They're happy the way they are. They really are, for the most part. As far as I know, I don't know of anyone that had left. But the one lady did go with the missionaries, but she came back, and she was the one that looked a little bit more soft. Let's just say that she had a little bit of extra layer. She looked a little more soft. But that was it that we know of.
Well, in my mind, I think that a tribe of 11 people is so small, you know, and I would have thought would have been.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and count heads in my photographs. There might have been more than 11. I'll go back and count how many, but there was definitely less than 20. But there's multiple tribes a lot around. Like, I think that overall, because they move, so they'll stay like for a little while, and they have no way of tracking days, but they'll stay for a little while in one area, and then they'll pick up and they'll move to a different area of the land that they have. So I think altogether there's about maybe 1,500 of them altogether, but the Hadza that we visited was smaller, probably less than 20 altogether, if you included the men and the ladies and all the children.
Do you see other tribes in your travels?
Yes. So we actually went to another tribe called what were they called? Oh my goodness, the blacksmiths. So we went to another tribe. So they're a little bit more, they're like a little bit above the Hadza, still very, very primal for sure. And we talked to those ladies as well. And they had said that they were asking us questions like, they said, what do you do? Do you farm cattle, or do you something about goats? Like, those were the only two choices. We were like, neither. We don't do anything. And they were shocked. And they said, do you take care of your babies? And we said, yes, we take care of our babies. We also have careers where we work in office buildings and things like that. And they looked at us confused, and they said, because the interpreter would interpret, and they said, why would you do that? Why would you take care of babies and have a career? And we're thinking, yeah, why do we do that?
Well, it's so interesting when you talk about, like, I was visioning, you know, like they run back and forth the same hill and this and that, and they know every bud and fruit. It's because that's their neighborhood. You know, like we know our streets of our neighborhoods, right?
Yep.
And their neighborhood is maybe vast because they change, you know, and they move, they're nomads basically. But they, through all those years, you know, and kids are sponges, right?
Yeah.
That's all they see. They don't see TV and they don't see anything else. So it's just their brains are so wired differently, and it's just incredible. Thank you. I'm gonna have to jump off. Thank you
No
so
problem.
much.
You're welcome. I'll post the replay for us.
Yeah. Okay. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Valerie. Good to see you.
Thanks.
Another thing too, I was thinking about when Valerie was talking, what the heck is now escaped me, but I'll come back to it. But yeah, they're just so happy. They enjoy their life. And we asked the interpreter, like, do you think that they would be happier out of their territory or out, you know, like in a more developed part of the country? And he said, the interpreter said, you know, I don't think they'd be happy. And we all know, this is what I was going to say. We all know how comfortable it is to stay in our own environment, right? Like when we try to make changes to our habits and our lifestyle, it's hard and we fight it tooth and nail and we don't want to do it. We want to just do what we know. Everybody's more comfortable doing what we know. And as hard as it is to imagine living like that, that's what they know. That's all they know. And so they would much rather just stay that way. Another interesting thing about the honey is you could kind of see the first glimpses of food preservation. So when they found that honey, they had the honey, right? They all took their turn to get their honey because they didn't want to share. They all wanted their own. They took their turn to get the honey, and then they covered up the hole with a rock. They covered up the hole with a rock so that it would still be there so they could come back again. That's kind of like food preservation, right? So that could be like the first glimpse of some sort of a agricultural movement type situation, you know? So it's like, where do they learn that from, you know? Because they really don't have a way of preserving food otherwise. So it's just kind of, they're going along with their natural instincts. So it's pretty cool. What I wanted to answer on this call also is that some of my clients, Deborah, you asked one, you actually asked the same question I did. And I wanted to go through them because I know some of them couldn't make the call tonight and they'll be watching the replay, but I wanted you to know that I asked your questions and they gave me some great answers. So one of the first questions was from Lisa, and she said, what brings them the most joy? There's some similarity in some other questions from others, but what brings them the most joy? So when I asked the interpreter to ask them that, they said for their men to have a successful hunt. That brought them the most joy. Another question that Lisa had was, what happens when they die? Like she said, do they have any special beliefs or of where they go spiritually after they die? And the lady said, nope. When you're done, you're done. There's no ceremony. There's no, they do have a belief in like the ficus tree, but other than that, they don't. So when their life ends, you've checked out. Their life is over. And as a matter of fact, they actually bury the body now, but they never used to. They would just let the body be there, but it got stinky and unpleasant. So now they actually bury the body, but there's no ceremony like what we do in today's world. There's no ceremony. So I thought that was interesting. Lisa also asked, is there any rituals or ceremonies or the meanings behind them that they might do? And they said, not really, but sometimes they might celebrate a wedding. And I think when they celebrate, it's just basically like they dance around the fire. But they celebrate a successful hunt. Other than that, there's no special rituals. There's no celebrations. Another question that JR asked, one of my clients, JR, he said, what creates illness? He said in there, and he was specifically referring to like the way they eat. Do they have any illness? And, you know, and I'm sure he's coming at this question from our modern world. What we eat creates a lot of illness, as you all know. And the truth is that their illnesses are not caused by the food that they eat, but really it's just by accidents, like getting, you know, mauled by an animal, and poison. They use poison on their arrows to kill the harder animals, because some of the animals got a lot. Some animals are smarter than others, right? There's some very dumb animals that you can just kill them with a traditional arrow and they're done. There's other animals that are smart. So think of like baboons, you know, monkeys. They are smart because they're like us. They could take the arrow right out. So they've created, they've made the blacksmiths, the other tribe I was talking about, they actually make the arrows and they trade. So the Hadza will trade food or something for the arrows. And these arrows are designed with these extra barbs on them so that they can't be pulled out. I mean, I suppose you could strongly pull it out, but it would destroy you, because it's not meant to be pulled out backwards. So the illnesses that they have are mainly caused by those types of accidents, you know, with the poison and maybe getting mauled by an animal. So I thought that was interesting. Gina asked, are there any seasonal celebrations around food? Do they have any seasonal celebrations? So we know that they eat seasonally. You know, there's going to be periods of time where there's going to be an abundance of, you know, plants. There's going to be an abundance of hunting. And then there's going to be periods of time where there is no abundance, you know, in the harshest of winter, they're going to not have a lot of plant food, and hunting may be scarce. So they really don't have any seasonal celebrations. They just celebrate if they've had a good hunt in general. She also asked if they have any special clothing or dances. They don't have any special clothing. They were wearing a lot of animal hides, but they also had some donations given to them. So some of the kids would have like a Nike sweatshirt on. Those were all brought in by missionaries and things that people that have made donations to them. But other than that, there are no seasonal celebrations or clothing. They did, however, what I want to say, they didn't say this to me when I asked that question, but I noticed myself that the ladies had a lot of beaded jewelry that they made. So they trade food for these beads and they make headdresses, like the Hadza chief and his wife had special headdresses on, and they had necklaces, and we could buy some. So they had like, which this is also another thing that they've been starting to do now that they get more visitors. They set up this area where they display everything that they make, and visitors come and pay. So they're earning money, and then they're trading it for what they need, which is like arrows and things of that nature. But they did have, so even though they didn't say they have a special dress, I did notice that they had special jewelry on. So I don't know if it is special in like if it means anything, or maybe it's just for the sake of wearing jewelry, but they did have jewelry on. Let me see some of the other questions. I have them written down. Oh, they did dance around the fire. I don't know if it looked like they were just, you know, hopping along, skipping around the fire. It didn't look like there was any choreographed dance number. It just looked like they were just bouncing around and singing. So it didn't look like it was anything special in particular. Oh, so Gina also asked how long they nurse their babies, which I mentioned earlier, until 2 or 3 years old. She was also wondering, what else do they feed their babies after they stop nursing? They feed them this fruit that comes out of the baobab tree. So the baobab tree had these beautiful flowers that would fall. And I have to tell you a funny story, that some of us that were sleeping under the tree, sometimes they would fall on us, and it was so dark that we were like paranoid it was like an animal or something. So there were a few of us that thought, oh my God, what was that? Did you feel that? And then we were like, oh, it's just the flower falling out of the tree. Okay, we're all right. So, but that flower, it has inside this little tiny thing that looks like a nut. It almost reminds me of like a macadamia nut. And what they do is they grind it, and we actually got to grind some of it. So we put it on a rock, and then we grabbed another rock and we just ground it so much so that it turns into powder. And I can tell you, I have videos of them doing this stuff. They are so efficient. Like that woman ground that stuff so fast. When it was my turn, I was like, "Ooh, this rock is heavy," you know? And she just whipped that off like it was so easy. So this powder stuff, they just pinched it with their fingers and they just put it in their mouth. And to them, it's like a vitamin C, how we would think of vitamin C. And it had like a sweet taste because we got to eat some too. So it was really quite tasty. But that's what they give their babies once they're old enough to eat the meat and the root vegetables that they get. Let's see, what else did they? Oh, Deborah, your question was the same as my question. Do the women have any desire to go on a hunt? So I asked them that. I said, do you ever want to go on a hunt with the men? And they immediately said, nope, they don't want to go at all. And I asked the interpreter again, I said, do they ever have the urge? Like, I know they don't go, but do they ever have the urge? And he asked them and they said, they just shook their head. No, they do not care to go on the hunt, which was pretty interesting. The thing that interested me about that is that in today's modern world, and I'm not going to say this to debate anything, but we have this culture where some women, not all women, some women have this desire for equality, right? Like they go to the extreme to do everything a man can do, a woman can do better, right? And it's so interesting how we got there. Like, how did we go from these women being gatherers, no desire to go on the hunt and do what the men do, but we're here where we have women who will do anything in their power to do exactly what a man does and strive to do it better while raising children, right? Like, it's mind-boggling how satisfied they are with their role. There was very clear, definitive men and women roles in this tribe. And what was clear to me is it worked. Like, it worked. They were a team, like working together for the same goal. Nobody felt like, oh, she gets to stay home and just go pick root vegetables and I got to go bust my ass and try to hunt a pumbaa. And the women's not saying, well, that's not fair. I want to have the glory of making a kill. I don't want to just do this lame gathering. You know, there was none of that. None of that. And today in our modern world, that's all we hear about, you know, is women's rights. And, you know, and I'm all for women's rights, don't get me wrong, but it's just interesting how far we've gone away from that, and that they're so very happy with the way that they've got it worked out. And I thought, like, that's also a really great lesson for us in today's world. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really happy my husband takes the garbage out. Like, I don't want to do that. And I'm really happy that he takes the dead mice out of the mousetrap. I don't want to have any part of that. None. And I'm very happy with doing the laundry. You know, I will do that all day long by myself. I don't care, you know, and I just think that it's interesting that and I think that it's okay that we should be okay with men having certain roles and women having certain roles, because honestly, sometimes those roles just make life easier. You know, they really do. Sometimes they just make life easier.
I do take the garbage out.
I do sometimes too.
Because I do it better. No, there you go. Because I do it better. He puts it in the wrong spot. Like, seriously, I've told you 10 times, you know. So it's just, and now maybe that's my fault. It's just easier for me to do it without having to. That's bad.
I do
Maybe I'll
sometimes.
tell him, yes, you can take it out, but do it right this time.
Yeah. But like what I do is I take the garbage out to the bigger garbage can in the garage. And then he takes the big garbage can with all the garbage and he takes
Yeah.
it to the dumpster. So
That's what I do.
yeah, it's just it's so nice to have some of that. Like I'm really happy that we have rights, but I don't think that I have to. I'm okay with also having men jobs and women jobs because, quite frankly, for me, I'm just speaking for myself. A lot of times, it makes my life easier and more pleasant to have that experience. So,
About the mice, no one in our house wants those mice.
oh yeah, and you want.
I have said I'll move first.
Yeah, I don't do that either.
No.
My kids will do it, you know, like
Oh.
when my husband goes away at camp, if we catch a mouse, I freak out because I leave it there. It's just gonna sit there and rot because I won't touch it. And my kids sometimes will come over and I'll say, "Hey, do you want to throw away the dead mouse? Because I don't want to touch it." And they're like, "Mom, just pick it up by the trap. You don't have to touch the dead mouse." I'm like, "I don't even want to touch the trap. Like, I don't want to go anywhere near that thing." So it's kind of funny, but you know, and another funny thing about the mice when I was going on the hunt with or not the hunt, but when we were gathering with the ladies, there was a point where they thought they found a mouse. So this one woman just started stabbing the dirt. Like just it seemed like just a random spot. She started stabbing the dirt and I asked the interpreter, I'm like, "What is she doing? We're like in the middle, there's no plants or anything. Like, what is she doing?" He said, "She's looking for a mouse." They stabbed that dirt for probably about 15 minutes. 15 minutes. They ended up with this huge hole in the ground, like just from stabbing and moving. Like she'd stab it with her stick to loosen it up because it was kind of stiff and dry. And then she'd use her hands and she'd rake her hands through it. And she was looking for a mouse. And I'm thinking, are we going to witness like a mini hunt? Like, is she going to kill the mouse? Are they going to eat the mouse? You know? So I guess they do like little mini hunts, but luckily for me, she didn't find it. So we didn't, we didn't have to see that. But I thought that was interesting how she was looking for a mouse. One more question from my client, Brad. He was wondering what the biggest threat is. And like I answered in JR's question, the biggest threat when I asked the interpreter, they said was the poison, was the number one biggest threat was poison. And I would imagine that, you know, having an accident with, or, you know, like some sort of a mauling from a bigger animal or starvation would be secondary to that. But their biggest threat was poison because, like we were saying earlier, they don't have hospitals. They're far away from a hospital if they had to go. When we went to where they are located, it took us about an hour to drive in like a one of those big safari Jeeps over some really, really rough terrain. Like we were jostling all over the place in this Jeep, crossing dried riverbeds and huge boulders and rocks. So getting them to a hospital, they would die from the poisoning before they got help. So they said that was their number one, their number one threat. And then also Brad asked, what do they look forward to each day? And they look forward to a successful hunt was their answer to that. So they're very simple, simplistic people that all they want to do is have a successful hunt so they can survive. That is their main goal. And they're very focused on that. So it was pretty incredible. But I wanted to share with you guys, I know we're just about at our hour, we're just a little bit over. I wanted to share with you guys that when we were gathering our root vegetables, there were these really just trees. It just looked like regular trees to me, but they had these long like vines hanging down from the tree that re-rooted into the ground. So the women started with their sticks hitting the ground, like trying to like get at where those roots were going. And they are so fast with just a stick within just a matter of minutes. They had this huge hole and they'd scrape it bigger with their hands and they would find these potatoes and they would cut the potato off of the vine, the root, and they'd immediately start peeling the potato and then eating it. So I don't know exactly like we have white potatoes, you know, red potatoes. I'm not quite sure what potato family it fell in, but they would just start eating it and they would give it to us. Funny thing is, they gave us the potato and I was taking a picture with the potato and I didn't hear something they said. The interpreter said it. I missed an important thing. They said, don't swallow it, just chew it and suck on it and then spit it out. So we're all taking little pieces that they give it, but guess who ate the whole thing? Because I didn't hear them say that. So I noticed that my friends were all like taking it out of their mouth, like half chewed. And I'm like, oh, she must not like it and doesn't want to be rude, right? So she's trying to throw it away. And then I noticed they were all doing that. And I'm like, are you guys not eating it? And they're like, no, you're not supposed to eat the whole thing. You're just supposed to chew it a little bit and then take it out. And I go, oh, I ate the whole thing. Not the whole potato, but the small piece that they gave me. I ate it and swallowed it whole. So they're like, well, good. Lori's our guinea pig. We're going to see what happens, because the Hadza women would eat it whole, but they told us not to, because, you know, our gut biome is not designed for that. We're not used to eating that kind of food in out in the wild like that. So I can safely say that nothing happened to me. I was fine, but I thought that was interesting. So then we would go around and we found a whole bunch of potatoes. So they would bring them back to the camp and they had pots and pans that they would boil water and they would chop up the potatoes and they'd put them in there and they'd cook them. They must have bought in the pots and pans with the money they earned from the jewelry, or maybe they did a trade with someone with the other tribes that were just a little bit more developed. So they did, but they did have like metal pans. It was funny because we said, oh, look, there's their kitchen cupboard, because they had metal pans literally hanging from the branches of the trees. So we're like, oh, that's their kitchen. It was so funny. And their huts. So they have these little tiny huts, like really little, like I'm talking like maybe, oh, let's see, maybe like 5 feet wide. That's it. And it was like a circular, like a dome that they used twigs and mud to create the side, or and sometimes not even mud. Sometimes it's just the twigs itself and like, you know, the thatched look, you know. And that's where they slept, but they never went in there unless they wanted to sleep. Throughout the day, they were never in there. So, but we went and saw the chief's hut, and I have pictures. I had pictures taken of me in there. I don't have the pictures yet, but I'll be sharing those when I get them back from the photographer. But it's just very, very interesting. So they were cooking and they were eating, and the women ate. If they found root vegetables, they ate immediately, and they were nice enough to share a little bit with us as well. So that was kind of cool to see. Oh, all right. So that's mostly everything I have for you. Do you guys have any other questions?
No, I was gonna ask about their accommodation, but yes, you answered that.
Very primal. It's no frills. And what they do when they move from place to place is they just leave the huts. We could see remnants of older huts, because we would ask the interpreter, we're like, these look like they were like torn down and kind of empty and barren. He said, yeah, that's from when they stayed here another time. Or maybe another tribe was there, and so they just pick up and they move and they rebuild. Wouldn't that be nice to have a new house every couple months? Actually, it would kind of be a pain in the butt.
I have a question.
Sure.
So it sounds like a wonderful experience and you learned so much. What did you personally, what impacted you the most that you'll bring back to your own life?
Great question. I think what impacted me the most is that we in today's modern world live in a very, very complicated way. And over the last few years, I've been trying to simplify my life as much as I can. But what was the most impactful for me is that simplicity doesn't mean that we're going without something or that we're sacrificing anything. Simplicity to them is pure happiness. Like they they're so happy with their lifestyle. And I thought, for us in today's modern world, if we try to simplify things or go without, so to speak, we look at that, our perception is all wrong. We look at that as like we're sacrificing. And it doesn't have to be that way. You know, it can be like our lives can be just as fulfilling, but in a more simple, more aligned with nature. And so for me, it was really interesting to think about ways that I can simplify my life and change my perspective, to think that I'm not sacrificing something, but I'm actually gaining something. Like I can, if I simplify my life, I can gain so much more. There's going to be more room in my life for relationships and experiences and just anything that's more positive. Whereas now we get so caught up in the rat race of our lives that when we do try to simplify, we think we're missing out. So it's kind of like embracing JOMO, right? The joy of missing out. So I think for me, that's one of the things that has impacted me personally. And also what impacted me personally is just having that connection, a deeper connection with the work that I do through WildFit. It's really kind of just, like I was saying, like everything that Eric said is true. Like there's no fluffing the story. Like it's all true. And seeing that firsthand just makes me feel so good about what we're doing in the world to help people. Thank you for asking. Anybody else? All right. Well, I thank you guys so much for, listening to my stories, and I'm sure there'll be more, as I remember and journal and recall on my time there. And I have so many pictures that I want to share. I've shared some over the course of the week that I was there. The internet was very spotty, so sometimes it would take 8 hours for those pictures to upload, and then I'd run out of battery and whatnot. So, first world problems. So I have so many more pictures that I will trickle in my social media content. And then I have even more that from our time with the Hadza, that I had professional photographer kind of follow us around and take pictures too. So it's really kind of cool, because when I go back and look at the pictures, I can go back to what I was thinking and feeling in that moment, so I'll be sharing more stories and stuff in the future. So thank you, ladies, for joining me tonight. And I'll post the replay. So if you want to share this with your spouses or friends, feel free to share it if you think they'll find it interesting. And yeah, look for more and think about some of those things that I shared with you. Like each thing that we experienced, there was almost like a lesson in each one, and I thought, wow, that's really incredible, because I wanted this trip to be fun and feel like I was on vacation, but more importantly, I wanted to come away learning something, and how can this impact my life? So there were so many little lessons in there that were just like little gems along the trip. So hopefully by me sharing these with you as well, you will think about that. And I'd love to hear from you guys, whether it's, a message or a post on Facebook. Let me know if anything that I've shared resonated with you, or you can let me know now. Did anything kind of like, is there anything that you're thinking of that you might like? What is your takeaway from the experience that you've heard about so far?
Eating as necessary, not as habit. So
Yeah.
because I have as you know, a snacking issue, so a big snacking issue. So I just went through a 3-day fast. So
Good.
yeah, and it was good. Yeah, I'm good at the salt water fast. I don't have anything else. So yeah,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
And I'm sure you're feeling great.
Well, I'm working towards, and now I'm going to be into spring and really healthy eating, because I have dental surgery next Thursday.
Oh, good luck with that. Yes, you will do so well if you
I will
can.
be much
Yeah.
better than most people, I'm hoping.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Good luck with that. I'll be thinking of you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Looking forward to it.
Let me know if I can help in any way.
Okay, food. Bring me food. No.
Give you food.
Food that I can eat now. I'm already started making my soups and things so that it's all prepped. So yeah.
Good deal. That's perfect thing to do. Always meal prepping and planning is our best defense.
Yeah.
Or I should say our best offense, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
good luck. Does anybody else have any like aha moments or anything that I said that might have resonated with you or make you curious to explore in your life?
I liked when you were talking about, you said something about the kid with them, the key to survival is when they get challenged, that there is a team and they're supporting each other.
Yeah.
And that made me think about my own life and, you know, growing up, you have that with your parents and everything. But when we're, a little bit older and it can be a little different.
Yeah. And I think too, sometimes our modern world, we glorify this independence, and it's good to be independent so that you don't have to rely on someone. But I think we glorify it too much so that now we're shamed if we ask for help, especially as women, right? So just having that thought that teamwork actually works really, really well. And especially when you think about the family, you know, the nucleus, you know, like if we could all work together, life can be so much more pleasant and easier, you know? So yeah, working with teamwork and not giving up. Absolutely. Well, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So I will let you go. If you don't have any more questions or comments, I will let you go to the rest of your evening. Sorry, I went over topic a little bit or over time a little bit.
Look forward to more pictures. So
Yes, me too. I can't wait. I know they'll be very busy with getting them all done, but soon as I get more, I will share more. I have more too, so I'll share mine as well.
perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies. Have a great evening, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys.